Events unfold near the entrance to the temple. Someone asked, "Don't you know who it was?" It was a guy. He looked young and battered by life. But besides that, after stepping to the entrance to the building, someone is dragging a corpse. Blood is dripping on the steps, leaving a trail behind. Little nameless nothingness. Not only did he humiliate the warriors of the Great Blood Snake, so he did it in front of the Otrosive. How dare he provoke Jo Ji-eun, the leader of the sect. The guy with the corpse in his hands climbed the steps. The state is holding the body of a humiliated warrior. He straightened up and straightened his shoulder. "I feel confident in my actions." An old man with a scar on his face sternly looked at this impudent hero. Without thinking long, the boy threw his body at the feet of the sectarian. The crowd watched this closely. Everyone was outraged by this situation. The old man with a charm on his face recognized this scoundrel. The old man tells him, "So you strive to be killed." The warrior stands without giving any doubt that he came with a serious intention, and only a smile on his face symbolized his sinful intentions. He straightened his shoulders and asked the old man, "Are you the leader of this little blood snake sect?" The old man clenched his teeth at these words. He just couldn't contain his anger at this bastard. His eyes lit up with fire. He raised his hand to the side at the guy and promised that he would tear him to pieces. The anger of the head of the sect was just flaring up. He will feed it to wild dogs. The head of the sect rushed to attack the boy. Ego's fingers radiated energy. The guy stood and waited, knew what he was going for. The sectarian's insane eyes burned with rage. Going to the attack, he shouted blood-devouring claw. He approached the boy with his hands. The tips of his fingers glowed with energy. He wanted to catch the guy, but he couldn't. He slipped out of his arms. The old man did not expect this. He was surprised by the ability of the warrior. In a second, the guy passed him and already the initiative was on his side. He was behind the sectarian and was able to beat him. The old man with the scar sighed deeply. He did not expect such an event. He called the guy a bastard because he had an ability that his grandfather couldn't fight. Attacking again, he again failed to catch the nimble opponent. He dodged his blows with lightning speed. The smile on the boy's face symbolized the complete peace he was in this fight for the toy. The old man attacked him every time with greater fury. He activated all his boss abilities but couldn't counter the boy's speed. The old man was tormented and he screamed with rage. "Damn bastard, you're mocking the family. Using your lousy tricks." One of the blows caught the boy's hair and covered his face. The grandfather smiled and realized that he was not such a boy and was already a brat. Breaking away from the ground with great force, he jumped on the guy. Having said that even if he mocks his opponent, he must follow him. The boss hit the guy hard. The impact was so strong that he flew up 10 meters. The boy crushed the wall from the blow. After the guy left a dent on the wall with his body, the old man shielded him with a fool. He thought that he had some skills, because his tricks were quite good. But seeing him in such a state, he had no doubts that this was all he had. Even if he had never heard of the Blood Serpent sect, he lived a miserable life full of cheap tricks that will end here. Grandfather is the leader of the sect and he will finish him personally. He still has to be grateful for these. Swinging the final blow to take the guy's life, the warrior caught his hand and stopped his blow. An unexpected turn for the grandfather. His fingers were bent and broken by the warrior. He screamed in pain. And an unexpected turn in the course of the battle. The boy laughed. This was his next trick. The old sectarian gritted his teeth. The warrior will knock him back with his blow. The sectarian's face changed into a frown. The guy was shocked by his grandfather's technique. This technique he used disappeared 20 years ago. The warrior knew everything. "You see, the last owner of this fighting technique, he killed 20 years ago." This information scared the grandfather for a reason. "Who is he?" the old man shouted to him. He wanted to know what kind of adventurer he was and why he had come. "Answer me quickly." The boy's eyes were filled with hatred and revenge. He replied that he was Mushin, God of War. People call him that. Mushin is the God of War. The old man was overcome with fear. The God of War sounded very scary to him, but it did not scare him. He thought that the boy was joking and laughed out loud at the boy's words. He activated his technique and again furiously attacked the boy. Mushin reacted to his attack and quickly dodged the attack. Having missed, the sectarian hit the wall, leaving a flash of light. If he is Mushin, then Old Man Shinzian. Shinzian translates as immortal. He answered the guy that he did not know how he learned about Mushin, but he can't bear to listen to this nonsense anymore. Attacking the fly again, he misses. Each time the blow is stronger than the incoming one. Hide, show off your tricks, the sectarian will catch up with you anyway. Taking the blow, the god of war blocked it with his hands. The boy slipped 10 meters from the impact, but his legs were immobile. Well, what a fool he is, thought the old man. He is a fool. Mushin died 20 years ago, and now he is just a skeleton. But if he came back, he wouldn't be like you. The grandfather answered the words of the insolent amateur, continuing to attack with his technique, breaking the boy down more and more, proving to him that he is a liar. He's a jerk who only knows how to lie. The sect boss replied furiously. The blows became more frequent and more exhausted the boy. The old man did not know about the boy's goals. All he wanted was to take the life of this species, and he continued to beat him, proving that he is wrong. The guy flew from side to side from such excitement. Mushin was already lying on the ground and showed no signs of life. The old man knew that this scoundrel would not defeat him and that it was only a matter of time before his life would be taken away. Who did this guy serve? He will send out the strongest members of the blood snake cult. And whether it is a man or a woman or a newborn, he will find and kill everyone who knows this fly. He will restore the reputation of the great blood snake. The boss swung his technique to finish off the unworthy opponent, but something went wrong and he froze after the impact. His jacket fell to pieces on his hand. The old man did not understand what was happening. Along with the jacket, the hand also flew away. Blood gushed out from nowhere. The guy redirected the blow at the sectarian. Grandfather was in shock. How it was possible to do this to this scoundrel. The guy got up from his knees and approached his grandfather. The cultist did not understand how this jerk could do this. It wasn't real and it didn't fit in my head. All he knew and understood at that moment was that the so-called Mushin died 20 years ago. But the guy didn't care. He didn't make him believe it. This will not save the old sectarian from death. The old man will be the first to know about it. The sectarian was not going to give up so easily because there is always an end leading to a beginning. Activating all his energy, he counterattacked. He was going to send the boy to the underworld before he went there himself. He will put an end to the travels of the Mushin, but for an insolent blow, he gets kicked in the face. The blow was so unexpected and powerful that the foot penetrated the old man's skull. Mushin was a real god of war and would not tolerate doubts on his side. The broken sectarian flew away from such a blow, as a stone bounces off water if it is launched. So the old man skipped along the ground. The bloody body lay 10 meters away from the bullet after its impact. The head was tied and there was a lot of ketchup on the ground. There was no longer any doubt. That Mushin is what he called himself. He came down from the altar so that the end would come. Grandfather had lost this battle. Sectarians watched this battle. Mushin said, "Who does not agree with this, step forward." The cold went through the bed. "Who does not agree with this, step forward." The cold went through the bodies of the audience. They don't have the courage to contradict something. The guy was looking at the crowd. There was a wild pause on the battlefield. He turned and went back. He did what he had to do. Mushin headed for the gate from which he had come. Sects and cults existed for many years without any serious conflicts. Sword Master Son Woo led the righteous sects. The demon cultivator, Dan Gak, led wayward cults. And the world between them was supported by the Mushin, Mu So Woo, to whom he always took a neutral position. But one day, Dan Gak's son, Dan Meng Wu, he was burned alive, and his corpse was beheaded. Cults that existed were suppressed. Their coalition leader, Dan Gak, was shocked and angry to find the murderer of Dan Meng Wu. Cults used all their opportunities, but it suddenly turned out that the culprit was Baek So Moon, the leader of the sect. Everyone decided to write it off as an accident, but Baek So Moon expressed his displeasure that he was mentioned in this incident without denying the guilt, so's Renaya's silence. This attitude of Baek So Moon only fanned the flames of Dan Gak's rage, which ultimately led to tragedy. In this way, the balance was disturbed throughout the country and a great war between sects and cults began. It was a beautiful sunny day. The guy says that this year the war between sects and cults will be exactly 20 years since its beginning. Mushin going with him for the Komani. He says how fast time flies. It seemed to him that he had just covered his eyes as 20 years had already passed. The guy thought about the Mushin's words as he walked towards them. The hero noticed the thoughtful look of the guy and asked why he was looking like that. The guy was embarrassed and said, "But nothing like that. But if you think so, in any case, the sects and factions of the cults were equal in strength in the Great War. Fierce battles raged in all corners of the country, and both sides suffered heavy losses. In the battle between Sun Wolei and Dan Gak, the former's sword pierced the latter's heart, and the overwhelming power of the coalition of sects soared almost immediately. When Dan Gak was killed, the cult coalition lost its power and suffered a series of defeats. As a result, the cult faction was unable to withstand the tension of the sects. They fled to the ridge of thousands of great mountains. Thus, the Great War almost ended with the victory of the sects. Thanks to this, the Murim coalition gained control over 70% of the country's lands. This concludes a brief summary of everything the guy knows about the Great War. He could tell more, but there is a lot of white space in this story, and because of this I do not want to add strange and dubious details. Did Mushin find out what gaps are we talking about? To be honest, there were many incomprehensible moments in the Great War from the very beginning. The fact is that the leader of Murim, Peak So Moon, disappeared not long after the start of the Great War, and soon reappeared after its end. Then the fact that the two defenders of Mage also disappeared around the same time. Mage is a sect of the world of martial arts, and the biggest hole in this whole story. The disappearance of the fly is voluntary. People came up with various reasons for the disappearance of Mu So Volnim. Many people said that he got tired of all this and simply disappeared. But this guy doubted it. And there are those who say that he became Shin Xian. The hero laughed. It's Shin Xian, but the guy continued to tell that it made sense to be. Ever since he disappeared without a trace from the world of the peaks of the fighting world. And in 20 years, by the way. The boy's curiosity knew no bounds. He asked Hero a question: why Mushin, the god of war, disappeared and then reappeared. Our hero recognized the boy and spoke his name. Eun Hyun, right? You understood that I am not an ordinary person when you saw me for the first time. Even though I didn't tell you who I am, he was able to figure it out on his own. It's just that he had already heard about Sun Vol before, and he watched as he dealt with the blood snake with ease. You joined the sect, eliminating everyone single-handedly. So he thinks it was obvious. Mushin understood what motivated the wise guy. Our hero, isn't your story about how he found out who he is more interesting than his question about where he was all this time? The guy realized that he was laughing at him. Does he think that the guy can find out what only Mushin knows? The hero saw that he was just a rising star. Jong Sung Pa raised his voice at him. Jong Sung Pa is a fictional branch of the sect, often used in various martial arts. Mushin turned to the guy and said that if he can withstand at least one of his combat attacks, he will answer his question. How does he like such a deal? I have heard so many times about this threat from the dream of freedom that I even stopped being afraid of it. I am not like the dream of the ox. The guy answered. Mushin thought that it seems that the dream Vol never told the guy about what he is capable of. Seeing the hero's look, the guy got scared and offered to speed up the chess because it seems to him that they are almost in the city. Mushin looked at the boy with interest. The sky was clear that day, and the guy was happy that they were lucky, because if there was fog, as usual, they could miss the unreal view. Mushin looked sternly at this landscape. It was a settlement of the Murim coalition. The guy couldn't hold back and asked about the future plans of the hero. What will he do? Does he want to go there? A clean forest wind ran over the hero's shoulders. It carries away leaves and memories. Countless possibilities opened up before our hero. The need for a system designed to collect and train star warriors to protect the walled sect from enemies. It became a good reason for the coalition to found the Cheon So Dan Academy. You can become a part of this academy, dear Mr. Esley, you understand what I mean. The entrance exam, of course, can be difficult, but you have the strength and talent, so don't worry. I say all this because I want you to become a member of Cho So Dan. I think it's better to gather information first before revealing your identity, mister. This will be useful considering the importance of your business. This is not an important matter, It is all about revenge. Mushin did not reject the scenario that the world would consider him an enemy, but he forgot that his partner will also be included in this category along with him. His partner told him more than once what would happen to him until the end. Maybe it's because he studied Volya in his sleep. It didn't matter whether it was words or thoughts, but they were exactly like his. The guy replied that, in fact, he is often told that he looks like Sun Woonim. There is nothing wrong with taking an example from Sun Volume, but his heart and character were too soft. It would be good if the guy didn't tell this shit. He didn't want anyone to recognize him, so from now on call him Muan. And now I am your friend, says the newly named Muan. The guy was surprised by such information and did not expect that the god of war would call him a friend. Night turned into day. Our heroes went to the Union of Martial Arts. There were many people near the gate. The guy was confused and did not understand why there are so many people today. Mission asked a question. All these people want to become members of Chong Seo Dan Academy? The guy replied that many of these people are going to get Kriblashimi in the Murim coalition that exists in Chong Seo Dan, not because of the goals of its establishment. The guy called the Mushin by his first name, though he didn't know that it should be called Muyen. Less than 1% of applicants make it to the final test. The guy was embarrassed after these words. Mushin says that he is trying to reveal the hero's disguise. Is he always so awkward talking to his friends? It was extremely unusual for the boy and he felt insecure. He promised that he would fix it. An acquaintance of the boy saw him and turned to him. Look there, Wong Hyun. He approached the junks and said that there are a lot of people here today. Yes. And he sees some from last year. It was Sun Bai Yan. He looked like a bum. Sun Bei-yang asked what kind of guy is standing next to you. The guy replied that it was his old friend who decided to enter Chong Seo Dan this year. His name is Muan. The guy who looks like a bum has it all figured out. He politely asked if he didn't mind if he asked what sect he was from. The guy was nervous about this question and answered that he is an independent practitioner who has no ties to sects yet. That's why you don't know him. Everything became clear to the homeless man. It was nice to meet him. He decided to share the information that the exam this year will be tougher than usual, so he wishes him luck. See you in the Murima coalition, answered the boy, saying goodbye to his curious friend. It was Yang Seo-gol, a former member of the Pilgrim faction. The Wanderers faction belongs to the self-governing body of the poor. The words about him appeared to Mushin, such as an independent practitioner with no affiliations. The guy called the fly that way because he thought it would be better to leave it in the shadows. The hero didn't like it, as the meaning does not speak nonsense, and confidently hide the meaning. The gate opened. It meant the beginning. The crowd of people paid attention to this, as they were eagerly waiting for it. Guys came out of the gate with a cart on which there was some closed object. The master walked forward. Couples wondered what it could be. The look of the Mushin was striking with its poffagism. The gate closed. The mysterious object was placed in front of the pulpo. And they said, "So, gentlemen, give us your attention." The master made a speech, saying you all made an effort to come here to take the Cheon So Dan No exam. Before we start the exam, those who do not comply with the standards will be eliminated. The people did not expect this. There was no selection that year. The exam itself was changed. There was nothing like it yet. People were worried about the new novelty. The master ordered to take the cover from the mysterious object. His servant pulled out a rag and under it was something that no one could even think about. At first glance, it was a black, cubic fireplace. Mushin was surprised at such an act. He knew what it was. It was a part of Odietsvia fireplace. The words about the antidote stone stunned the guy. The master continued his speech. It looks like an iron stone, but this stone is filled with spiritual energy that strengthens its strength. Ordinary blows will not even leave a scratch on it. Please hit this rock, use your fighting skills and try to put at least a dent in it. But the dent must be at least an inch deep. If you leave even 1 inch on one stroke, you will be qualified to pass the exam. But if you can't, you won't go any further. Although it is lunchtime, you will have to return by the way you came here. One healthy guy with a sword in his hands shouted out from the crowd that it was just an ordinary pebble. Confidently going to the exam, he said that they will have to pull a new stone soon, because he will cut it in half like cheese. One stroke of the sword. The master smiled and waited impatiently for it to happen. Prepared to strike and aim, he confidently stood up and was ready to hit the stone with all his might. The warrior swung and screamed like a ninja before striking. The warrior's blow was so strong and confident that sparks flew. But these were sparks from the split sword of a warrior. This sent the healthy man into shock and panic. This could not have happened, as a blow of such power from the spark did not leave even an inch in the stone. There was not even a scratch on the stone. The warrior tearfully looked at his sword. It was his favorite sword. The master laughed at the boy. Oh God! What is he doing now with this sword? Mushin liked such a joke, which was prepared for the newly elected fighters. The MANHWA Academy is working on raising its standards. The examination at the Academy of the Union of Martial Arts continued. The self-confident warrior's sword split into pieces and crashed between the master's legs. So it was quite dangerous, but we managed. The master saw from afar that it was not even necessary to go and check the soldier. Nothing happened. Next please. The impudent ninja approached the task and thought, what is so difficult here? Why is everyone panicking about this? With a blow of his sword, he asked to split the black cubic piece of stone. But the blow did not even leave a scratch on the stone. The master shouted next. The next warrior was with a more serious and heavier weapon than a sword. Swinging his weapon he also struck. The blow was strong and the weapon was massive with iron claws on the end. But even this blow did not leave a mark on the stone. Without giving anyone an answer why no one could even leave a scratch on it, the master stood watching all this and did not understand why no one had yet completed this task. The guy and his friend Mushin stood and watched the exam. The guy says that the antidote stone is very insidious, and no one can do it at such a pace. Well, next approach the task. The master shouted. The master gave a comment about the new warrior who approached the stone. He noticed that he had a sharp eye. Without a doubt, he was looking at the anti-guide stone, and he was ready to complete the task. He swung to strike. With a confident stroke of his sword, he attacked the stone of the anti-guide. This blow was unlike the blows to come. The whole crowd froze in anticipation of the result. This blow was of the second level. Even the sound of the sword was second nature. Everyone was waiting for the answer. Did he pierce him or not? Mushin appreciated the blow of this guy. It was a blow without anything extra. It was a successful attack. As the dust settled from the impact, everyone saw that the participant had left a cut in the stone. Everyone got married. The master was happy to be the first to pass the test. His blow reached more than 3 inches. That was enough. The gates of the academy were opened for this guy. He was well prepared. Finally someone passed. Mushin asked the question, who is this? The guy replied that he himself was wondering who it was. But he doesn't know. The hero thought that he knew a lot, but it seems that there are things that are unfamiliar even to him. The guy reproached that he is not a biographical dictionary. How should he know that? In the crowd of participants, the boy saw someone he knew. Who is this? Is it some acquaintance of yours? The guy answered yes. This is Baek Gong, the grandson of the past sect leader Baek So Moon. He didn't understand why this person decided to join Cheon So Dan. There are probably reasons for this. When Baek So Moon left his post as head, his son Baek Chu Yang succeeded him as the leader of the sect. Nothing has changed since they announced their departure from the Merm Alliance. This guy hit the counter stone, and this blow was successful, which meant that it passes. Next was a girl. She held a thread in her hands, which did not look like a weapon that could cause damage. It was a silver thread, and she was preparing to make a blow specifically for her. The blow of this thread was so strong that she was the first to break off a piece of stone. The master used such a technique. How strange it was that the thread did more than the sword. It was Baek Ha-on and Baek Ah-un, which means that all of Baek Seo Moon's grandchildren are entering Cheon Seo Dan. And this is a clear sign that Baek Chu Yan wants to rejoin the coalition. This is a very obvious goal. It seemed to Mushin. He would not send his 3 children to Cheon So Dan at once just to restore relations. There must be a second reason. Why did he want to renew relations with the coalition? The next participant also hit a stone with a thread, and struck a 1.5-inch blow on the stone of the opposite direction. As expected, you passed. please come through. Lin liked the girl. She looked at him. He was a little shy. Well, whatever the reasons, it didn't matter to them. The master's mood rose. He saw that the rising stars were beginning to rise. Then please next. Mushin noticed that it was his turn to go. The guy decided to stop him, telling him to wait at least a second. The master doubted the participant at the exam. What is this guy from the Starnik faction going to do without a weapon? What is wrong with him? The master was interested in his non-attachment. He was in rags, but his gaze was deep. He had a strong, unusual aura, so strange and incomprehensible. Mushin, the god of war, confidently approached the stone and rolled up his sleeves. The master saw that he only had fists, not really believing that he had come with serious intentions. I asked the hero to step aside and come up when he is ready. The crowd laughed at him, since he decided to punch him with his bare hands, when the others could not even leave a scratch with an iron sword. His hands will fall off. The guy thought for a moment like the crowd. But someone in front of him was sweating. That this hero is stronger than one made of iron. He is stronger than a sword, with a power superior to the others. He is the one who stands at the top of the world of martial arts. He is the one who calls himself Mushin. The hero's blow was accurate and he hit directly on the center of the stone with his bare hands. The impact was so strong that the stone itself bounced forward and pieces fell from it. The master did not expect from this guy even that he would be able to hit the stone. Mushin never once doubted himself. For him it was a game. The guy thought that even 20 years later, he remains a hero, the god of war. The test was passed and the boys passed the exam. Those who passed this exam gathered on the spot. They looked at our hero with envy and danger. The guy noticed this cold look, and it seemed to him that Mushin had attracted too much wealth. Although he said that he did not want it, the boy looked at the hero and said that if he had used a sword instead of his bare hands, then most of all he would never have stood out. Or if it did, it would stand out even worse. The hero noticed that someone was looking at him suspiciously. It was a girl in pink. Having hatched on the hero, she did not take her eyes off it. Mushin did not like this facial expression. The suspicious girl looked away as she saw that she was noticed. It was all suspicious. Our hero filled this situation. The guy noticed his friend. The one standing next to him was Unhyun from Chong Song Pa. Mushin surprised everyone with his arrival. He was able to pass the exam with his bare hands, and everyone talked only about him. The exam participants began to pay attention to these two boys, and to complain about them behind their backs. This is the guy who used only one fist to pass the exam. The guy doubted his strength and said that he probably doesn't have normal training, that he only uses his fists. After observing everyone, I noticed that there are a couple of decent guys. I wonder who is the strongest among them. If nothing hides its power, a guy with a sword was standing on the side, which attracted the attention of the girl. As always, Dvivkina pays attention to the wrong thing. It seemed to the guy that someone was standing behind him and he turned his head. But it was his sister. He did not hear any sounds and thought that someone was standing behind him. But she just watched and listened to what was happening around. She thought and explained how she got here. The situation of the coalition is growing every day, but the Volmoon sect is following a different path. Because of this, you must restore the relationship with the coalition to increase their growth. Follow Gon and Ha-on and enter Chong Seo Dan. Become a bridge between the coalition and Pek Wol Mun. The guy paid attention to the beautiful girl, and he did not take his eyes off her. She attracted the boy. It was Miss An. Mushin noticed that the boy's thoughts were not focused on the task. Master, when everyone was gathered, he began his speech. Well, you've all been waiting for this for so long. The So-Den entrance exam will begin now. So follow me into the yard. The guy turned to Myun. Everything will begin now. Myun replied that he will see me when I pass the exam. The guy believed in him and he told him that he had a promise and he had better keep his word. If he fails, leave him alone. With a calm expression on his face, Muen understood that the boy was finally behaving like his friend. The journey continues, and after everyone entered the yard with the master, they met a new teacher. It was the head of the academy, known as the Iron Law, Lee Hansik. The people were shocked that the head of the academy, Lee Hansik, came to them. He was a legend. Once he cut down an endless number of demon cultivators with a single sword. Hansu continued his speech. having said that the test they will take now will be different from the one they took for admission. In other words, the level of complexity is even higher, but if they conscientiously hone their martial arts, they will definitely make it to the final exam. He also looks forward with full hope that this exam will reveal the worthy ones. And so the first test began. This is a test of the 5 senses. The name was very incomprehensible and everyone wondered what it meant. How will they pass the exam? And what does it mean that they will pass it right now? At this moment, a smoke grenade flies into the crowd of participants and fills everything with smoke. No one understood what it was and where it was flying from. How new bombs flew in them. The bombs created smoky chaos in the crowd of participants who did not even understand what the task was. For a second, Mushin thought that it was poison, but realized that it was just a smoke screen. Silhouettes of people with wooden sticks ran into the smoke. Our hero immediately turned his attention to them. These were ninja academies that were part of the trial. Our hero did not expect to see them. But I immediately understood what needed to be done. Curse that they are testing us. Nobody can see anything through the smoke. One of the participants saw the silhouette of a ninja in the smoke and asked what they wanted them to do. At that moment, a ninja stick burned him on his stupid head. It was obvious. And those who do not understand this will go home. The ninja's blow was so strong that the boy fell to the ground. His face was full of passion. He did not pass the Chapter 7. The whole yard was full of smoke. What is happening just now? People asked this question. How suddenly they were attacked. Those who did not understand the essence of the task were quickly sent to the knockout stage. The soldiers of the academy moved very nimbly into the smoke, and with every minute, fewer and fewer people were left in the smoke. Their weapons did not help from sneaky ninjas who hid in the smoke and mercilessly cut down the players. One of the participants saw it. And I realized that the killers are hiding in the smoke. He told this to his sister. He told her that as far as he understood the task correctly, it tested how long they could last in the smoke among the killers. The girl asked where they were, where these murderers were. They can be everywhere. Suddenly he felt danger. The killer came up from behind, but the boy quickly reacted to his attack. The participant had a sword and no one forbade him to use it. He cut the killer's stick. With this, he responded to his attack, making him hide again in the smoke. The killer appreciated him and said that he was beautiful. The Negro girl did not doubt the cleverness of her brother Samagon. She didn't even have to move a finger as he was able to stop him with one movement. Moonlight was given this attack with difficulty. The ninja was agile and his Ida VA managed to block it. He noticed that it wasn't just a wooden bat, energy was emanating from it. Even if he held a wooden sword, it did not mean that he was not well trained. He was a very clever killer. If they lose their wits for even a second, they will fail this exam. The bodies of participants who lost their vigilance lay on the smoky battlefield. Mushin watched this performance. He didn't care about this exam. He knew that no one could match him in strength. The girl saw the silhouette of our hero in the smoke. Without thinking long, she decided to attack him. Swinging the weapon, she stabbed the boy right in the back. She did not understand what happened. Instead of making a gift along the silhouette, she cut the stick of the murderer, whose head she wanted to cut down. The killer was shocked by such a sudden turn of events. He retreated back into the white mist. The girl hid her weapon and stood behind our hero. She looked at the fly with cold eyes. Mushin looked at her no less interested in what she wanted from him. Seeing him, she understood the essence for which she came to this exam. She remembered the moment when she asked the sage for a question to which she wanted to know the answer. Unfortunately, the sage did not know how to answer him, but he knew someone who could help her. And knows the answer. And now he was going to the coalition, Miram in the company with Anhang. Interested in the answer, the woman asked what his name was. And now he was in front of her. But she did not see him as someone who knew the answer to her question. She told him how he could be so distracted and become a target, just because he relaxed. After these words, she quickly moved away from him. Mushin absolutely did not understand this girl. At the moment, he stopped a blow from the killer with his bare hand. He caught him just in time for the attack. How unexpected. the hero said with sarcasm. Mushin crushed the killer's stick with his bare hand. With this, he sent one ninja off the battlefield. The ninja hid in the white smoke and did not understand how he broke his wooden sword with his bare hand. These were just toys for our hero. The exam continued, and the other participants who did not lose their vigilance continued to fight with the ninjas. The killers were real bastards, and they did not spare the participants at the exam. Parent deflected Ninzi's blow. The murderer who escaped the sword looked around and understood. Although he jumped back from the guy's blow, he still wounded him to the point of blood. He wounded him in the shoulder and cut him with the reverse grip of the sword. It was a worthy opponent and he passed the exam. One of the representatives reports on the situation during the exam period. Now among the participants there are those who escaped from the smoke and left the courtyard, and 30% were losers and were marked with the sign of death. The head found out about this, wanted the killers to exclude 50% of those who passed the exam. The head of the academy said he carries a sword with him, to whom this burden will eventually break. But it was a metaphor. Whose sword will break sooner or later? To pass the exam, you need to eliminate 50% of the failures. Night Academy. A voice from the window. Tavon, you're a headless bastard. I decided to come in after hearing what Sansu said. You secretly interfered in the exam and pretended to be a murderer. During the first exam, Sang-soo is a talkative bastard. I heard that there were real outstanding geniuses among the candidates, and I became curious, said the old man in the red jacket. The head denied that he said that he was not going to follow the exam. Everything happens the other way around. In the dark night, the couple continued their conversation already in the second setting. They took sake, and they started a friendly conversation. Pouring the first glass, the head asked if there were any feelings after the first test. After drinking the first glass, Do-won says despite what I heard many of them did not live up to their expectations. The head answered that it is so. Do-won saw many among them who aroused curiosity. The head asked in surprise, what is the truth? It's just not believable that someone was able to draw my attention, the great sword to her, one of the lords of the Blade of the Murim Coalition. They didn't just attract attention. They surprised him. There was still shocking information for Sang-soo. Each of them was on different levels, although he could not exactly separate the level due to the chaotic nature of the situation. They were one of the most promising participants who ever entered the academy. The head was a little glad of good news in the midst of all these events. In fact, the coalition must hope to create a new Dan using this exam. Because of this, Sang-soo was afraid that there would be no one qualified, but now he can rest easy. Do-won was surprised by this information. New day, don't you think? En Cheon Di Dan, which we always wanted to create. This information sounded very unusual for a man. A quiet evening at the academy. The guys who passed the upcoming test talked among themselves. After you made us run in this smoke until we were exhausted. The food was terrible. And what kind of housing is this? The girl sat on a modest bed and complained about everything that surrounded her to her brother. A typical girl. She says, how could the World Coalition show such poor hospitality to the Murim? Her brother sat and endured this thread. He tells her that they are not here as guests, are they? She still did not calm down. The brother turned his attention to their neighbor. His second sister approached their neighbor and thanked Mr. Mu. She thanked him profusely, Mr. Mu. If he had not fought with them, she would not have been able to pass. To her thanks, Mushin replied, Miss Peck, you could have done it yourself without his help. To this she replied that he overestimates her. She herself could not. Her brother watched this closely. Her sister stepped out from around the corner and spoke, and I told her not to be the first to humble herself. Oh nothingness. Observing this, the boy suspected something was wrong. He asked this insolent bitch what happened. It happened and you sometimes disappeared in white smoke while defending yourself. She realized that she was left alone, and extended her thread and began to spin it in a circle. All her attention was focused on blocking multiple attackers, but one of the killers was able to shield her, caught her thread, left her defenseless. At that moment, the widow and them ran at her, and she thought that she would fail the exam. But at that moment, Mr. Mu appeared and destroyed these two murderers. He made a remark. You have to be faster and more cunning with the thread when you make it bigger, but it seems that you are in a difficult position after your impractical and impulsive attack. At that moment, her sister called and said that she would take care of this side and she would look after the other. Perhaps you consider it beneath your dignity to join forces with her, but she relied on her. Mushin told the girls that those who are in their field of vision are all bait. You guys who are going to attack them are hiding in the smoke. You take a breath on your opponent. Our hero will get rid of the others. The addition of his sister's story was impressive. He was strong, smart, and experienced. Such a feeling that he saw smoke everywhere. Fill in his name, asked the brother. His name is Muan. People say that he is an independent practitioner. This gave many questions to this character, which have not yet had an answer. Anyway, the only reason we passed the test was because of you, sir. With your brilliant swordsmanship, the two brothers decided to meet Mr. Kum, who helped them. Their acquaintance was a little late. On the left was Jang Haikei, and from the right, John Gleck. Because of recent events, I didn't have time to think, but now I see that you are twins, said the guy in red. Yes, we are twins, answered the brothers. Well, in any case, it's nice to meet you. The lights have already been turned off in the houses of the academy. Somewhere in the darkness, a door creaked. A Mushin left the camp going into the forest. He climbed onto a large stone and looked at the night sky, which was full of stars. He only wanted peace, but he understood that it would not be like that. He noticed that a diligent girl was spying on him. Did he speak? Did you appear to make fun of him again? It was no longer important. He thought that at least in this place he could relax there. The girl understood that he noticed her. She jumped on a stone, and she said, I hope you didn't think I was following you. She came to him only because her legs led her to him, and she hid when she saw that someone was nearby. But how did he find out who it was? Was she still hiding her presence? To this question, Mun-Su answered that let's say I threw a stone, and a frog landed on it. It meant that he just guessed when he asked, and she answered his provocation. It was lunchtime for the girls. That he equated her with a frog. Does it matter what he compares it to, as long as your essence remains the same? Han Seo-jin. She came back and said her name is Han Seo-jin again. Also, she asked what is the name of this guy. The next morning. Exam participants, please pay attention. The second challenge will start soon, so please come to the training hall before it starts. People began to gather for the exam. I'm already tired. I must have slept uncomfortably. The training center is big enough. The examiner will be arriving soon, so please sit down and wait quietly. Maybe you know something for testing. Did you manage to get some sleep, Mr. Mu? The girl turned to our hero in the waiting room. He spent the night to see her near him. Oh, Miss Peck. Everyone hoped that it would be a simple test, but no one knew what was waiting for them. Can they weed out half of them again? Of course they can. But why? They did it yesterday. The examiner arrived at the scene and congratulated everyone on the test of the 5 senses. It was the examiner of the second comprehension test. His name is Juga Yun, and he looked suspiciously. The test had not yet been studied. The boys already had a headache. What a comprehension test. The examiner looked around and noticed that everyone looked tired. No one disturbed their sleep all night. He was told that they had enough time to rest, but judging by the way you all look tired, I guess the test you went through yesterday was a drowning one. The twin brothers fully agreed with the examiner's words. Wrong is the word. Even in a real battle it would not be so difficult. It was like they were hovering between life and death. Did the professor laugh to that extent? The teacher said that he cannot allow all of you to participate in the exam in such a pitiful state. The examiner ordered to bring in the prepared dinners, and beautiful girls enter the room and carry something that looks like tea. This drink is called longjing. Longjing is a type of green tea. It cleanses your body and strengthens blood vessels, and on top of that, its taste and aroma, even its color, make it a first-class tea drink. Even on the battlefield, everyone has the right and ability to replenish energy as needed before the battle. Using my authority, examiner, I will give you a little time. Because of that, please relax and enjoy. What a divine drink. First cup, second cup, The brothers drank tea in one gulp. The family team also tasted this nectar. He was not bad. At one point, Mushin stopped the Longjing. Just put it in the cup with your mouth, but don't drink it. According to the hero, something was mixed into the tea and he did not recommend her to drink it in a friendly way. Longjing was shocked by this information. She was holding a cup of tea, her hands were shaking. She listened to the guy. Well, what did everyone like? Asks the teacher. Everyone felt that the tiredness completely disappeared, and the taste and aroma are actually first class. The examiner noticed the effect of the tea and offered to proceed to the examination. All that is in front of them are various mixed common plants, also with additional expensive herbs that are very hard to find. The tasks of your exam are very simple. You can use all these herbs. It will be great if you can prepare the antidote you so need. The people were in a stupor. The tea was poisoned, everyone who drank the tea was affected. And now they need an antidote. The effects of the poison were shown on the examinees. One guy coughed up blood. He was frightened by the fact that blood was coming from his mouth. Many people coughed up blood, some coughed up blood. All this brutal production was planned. It was a curse. It was poison. Who could kill them? The tea was very poisonous and the effect of the poison was lightning fast, making everyone cough up blood. The examiner could not start the test. If I hadn't poisoned you. This will be a good lesson for them. In the future, they will often encounter poisonous substances. The teacher is in charge. The understanding that everyone drank tea with poison made everyone confused. The poison was very strong. The teacher said that soon the effect will only intensify and cloud their minds. About half an hour later, they lose consciousness. This will be the end of your trial. And you must find out what kind of poison you were poisoned with and make yourself an antidote. If it is too difficult for you, then you can leave whenever you want. The wizard will heal you with the antidote he already has. Well, good luck to you, said the teacher and slammed the door. He left an aroma candle near the door. When it burns out, they will lose consciousness. During this time, they must come up with an antidote. The soldiers were poisoned like cockroaches. They crawled around the room coughing up blood and did not know how they would come up with and make an antidote in such a state. My God, what a tough exam. I want to pass the hell out of this test. The boys were screaming, bleeding, their bodies were suffering, their hands were shaking and it seemed that they were going to die. Longjin asks the guy, how did you know that poison was mixed in the tea? You could just keep silent, but for some reason you told me. The girl addressed Mushin with these words. I helped only because she can save everyone else, said the hero. Didn't she say that herself? The guy asked. She did not expect such a turn of events. She falsified her words as she said that if you ever need help, please let me know, although I am not sure that he will ever need help. Mushin replied that he would not refuse her offer. At that moment, the hero asked the girl what specialties she has besides working with thread. Most of all, a lot of time will pass before our paths diverge. He was sure that her ability was poison. This means that he helped the girl only because she could heal everyone around. Although there are many types of poison, only 5 are taken as a basis. Poisoned exam participants were lying on the floor. Longjin promised to wait a minute. She examined the body, and she noticed that the body became cold and blood was flowing from it. Since she did not have these symptoms, it means that this poison works only when taken internally. Tea has a more saturated color and aroma than the others. So the poison he used had a color and smell masked by tea. And since the Muram coalition does not store deadly types of poisons, I put all these calculations together. There must be a basis for the poison through which all this takes place. Mushin shared his thoughts with the girl. Either it's a blood-dispersing poison, or it's snake venom. The girl agreed with him. But their symptoms are very similar, but they have different antidotes, so it is difficult to say which one by name. But this is not a problem if you know the difference between them. The difference lies in whether there is Sporativlaniv Saradini Dantianya. Duntun is considered the city of Harnania of vital force and chi energy. You read everything correctly, and this poison did not provoke any resistance from my Dantian. The girl was shocked. Mushin drank this tea even though he knew it was poison. But how is he still okay? Han Seo-jin saw how the Mushin drank this poison along with everyone else. This guy amazed her more and more. Everyone was bleeding and you can't tell what he did to him. It was incredible, but he had complete immunity to poisons. She was going crazy with curiosity. Mulan. Who is he really? On one of the beautiful green days, silence reigned in the academy. Sang-soo stood on the mountain and looked at the scenery of the academy. Many thoughts in his head troubled him. He saw one of them on Yaga and she did not give him peace. That evening, when he and the head of the academy were drinking sake, he said that Shanson had taught many practitioners. Their organization cannot become stronger just by increasing the number of soldiers. Well, if those people he noticed joined the group, then their power would increase. The head of the academy emphasized that Yen Chong-dan is the answer. The time has come. These words of the head of the academy did not give him peace. He stood and did not touch anyone when the master approached him and said, looking at your thoughtful face, it does not look like you are waiting for the results of the exam. It was the teacher of the second test, Sir Juga. Some time passed, and Miss Peck's antidote began to work. With her knowledge in the field of poison, she was able to cure everyone who was in the room and who passed the exam. Everyone was very grateful to her and did not stop praising her. If it weren't for her, they could all die and fail the exam. Her ungrateful sister did not understand why they continued her all, simply praised her for making a common antidote. Hearing these words, the brother could not contain himself and said, hold your tongue, okay? How can you say such a thing? After you ate this antidote, his sister was shocked that her brother did not support her and took the opposite side. The people continued to admire the concession that she was able to heal everyone in one moment. Upset, she said, you are giving great importance to my weak. People answered that they are not weak at all. The Mushin watched all this with a satisfied expression on his face. The girl looked at him with the thought that all this is due to his merit. Two experienced masters discussed the moment they realized you had given them snake venom. Few people can teach how to disperse blood from snake venom. How could they understand it? After the test was over, the master came with the antidote, but when he entered the examination hall, he greeted them with a passionate, surprised look. The master felt as if he had been hit on the head. It seems that Li Jiam will become not only stronger but also more determined. Mr. asks, what do you think about it? He questions, what you mean? Have you heard anything about Li Ham? Do you mean a new group? It looks like we've made a decision, but I'm still not sure about it. Well, if you look at the state of the coalition now, I have already begun to agree that the formation of Yen Chong-dan is necessary. After all, I see that you are also planning to support the new group. I'm just saying we need to think about it all. Don't you think Un Chong-dan's influence is much bigger than Zhong Xiao-dan's? Of course it is. If Cheon So-dan is a shield, and Cheon-dan is a sword. Moreover, this sword is both sharp. The master says that often the best way to deal with an infection is to cut it out on the flesh. The master thought that the whole process would be painful, filled with blood and tears. It was much better than ignoring it at the risk of life. At this moment, a guy breaks into the dialogue and informs Mr. Juga that the preparation for the new test is complete. I will be ready soon. Based on this, Master said Li Jiam wants Do-won to become the head of Un Chong-dan and he thinks that the only one worthy of it is not someone like him. To avoid your doctor's other words being of insufficient importance, Su watched coldly. The name Do-won was in his head. After the exam ended, people asked if there would be a continuation. The people remained in shock after the preliminary exam and suspected that they wanted to poison them. They weren't sure if they were cured of this poison yet to go to the next test. It was interesting to know what will happen with the new test this time. No one had any idea what the academy had in store for them. They approached the glass temple and began to enter it one by one. The examiner was already there, so everyone go inside. When they went inside, they saw that it was dark. There were also steep steps. They were warned to be very careful not to slip. Wow, just think that there is such a city underground. Probably, the pebbles worked tirelessly and the warriors talked among themselves. Master Chow came out of the dark corridor and informed the soldiers that they had been surprised very early. In front of them is the code to the underground training catacombs, as well as many other rooms. Training rooms are rooms where practitioners search for ways to cultivate using special techniques. In some cities, they are organized in such a way that they resemble a labyrinth. Among the new members there are those who are practicing for the first time and cannot go back. This is the second part of the comprehension test, and it will take place in real underground training catacombs. As the teacher said, they need to find a way out of this maze within half an hour. If they fail to exit within this time, you will be issued a death token. The master hopes that no one will stay here in these underground realms, and again they will appear on the surface. The master's speech was quite exciting. He knew it. The people could not believe that they were placed in such a city where they can walk in circles. Everyone was thinking about the ulterior motive of this task, as there was a secret motive behind each person who came. As far as in this round, everyone will be saved by a self-confident guy. He told everyone that he had completed the path along which they were walking. Come on, this time they will all be able to pass the test without any problems. The guy assured everyone, people in this circle have such amazing abilities. Mushin did not want to play with this fool for a long time, and if he was so sure, stand up and lead everyone. He promised that when they all get out safely, he will buy food for everyone. Brother, we must follow him quickly because time was limited. The sister tells the guy that most of all, walking this way, they will most likely get lost. The strange guy next to whom our hero was passing said, I feel a light vibration and a sound that is constantly coming from the wall. This means without words that the underground training catacombs are a continuously moving machine. And since we went down, everything around began to vibrate. The question for this strange guy was immediate. How could he notice all this? He replied that he was from the Barter sect and that this machine was developed by their creators. Mushin answered all this and he completely agreed with this guy. But this car is not the only problem that was there. Mushin noticed that he could smell the sweet smell that he had noticed growing stronger. The girl next to me wondered what kind of smell it was. The Blasphemer brothers also smelled this smell, and it is actually sweet. Did the entire dungeons of the catacombs begin to be filled with poison? There was no doubt that poison had been released into the cave. The main goal of this test is to find a way out, which means they could not use deadly poison. Since the people continued to breathe it even after smelling it, they were definitely poisoned. The twins who stood near the girl said that they had already begun to feel the effects and poisoning in the form of dizziness, but the girl had not yet said what the symptoms were. The guy said the longer they hang around here, the more difficult it will be for all of us to get out. Mushin approached a guy who was from an underground sect. He asked him what his name was. The guy replied that his name was Sabayanan. The next question is whether he can find a way out. The guy scratched his head, not sure. He didn't yet know how the mechanism worked and he needed to find out what sign it was moving around them. It was very dark and it was no different from, and in order to find out all this, time was needed according to his forecasts. They won't even be able to do it in an hour, but only if everyone becomes his eyes and ears, then things will go faster. The people were happy to help, there was no reason not to help. Everyone wanted to quickly find a way to get out of these catacombs. Everyone was in favor of finding a way out of the cave together, and this guy could do it. The man told him everyone was ready, then lead us Sabayanan. When they started walking, the guy said, look for any cracks in the ceiling, floor, or walls, and show me all of them, even those that seem insignificant. The husband did not notice that Han and Jean, who had been nearby a minute ago, had disappeared somewhere. Miss Peck saw that Sir Mu was going the wrong way and warned him. He turned to her and said, go without me. He'll catch up with everyone soon, so don't worry. She didn't argue with him and said okay. Searching near the exit is useless. If memory serves correctly, this is the scent of snake jaw. When their comrades were wounded in textbooks from the northern regions, they used this as a more effective method. Only they use this drug in very small quantities. If you continue to inhale toxins, you will understand how I got my name. The poison was rich in sweet aroma. In the end you will fall into the jaws of the snake. That's the curse, said Mushin. He felt the effects of the poison. Although he lowered his breathing rate as much as possible to slow down the symptoms of poisoning, he thought it would help him. But I started to act. The main character's legs seemed to him to be in a sea of blood. Every second the red liquid rose higher and higher. The level of this red liquid has almost reached the protagonist's neck, and immediately he was completely immersed in this red liquid, It was useless. The master said that the fears and pain that open you deeply will completely consume your mind. And the main character felt the effects of this poison firsthand. For some time, his thoughts went into another dimension. He found himself in his memories where he stood on levitating stones. The spilled blood of our brother only united us. One of the main sectarians stood on the mountain. He shouted, "We will become stronger with the blood of our enemies." He was surrounded by his followers and he wanted to become stronger today and become a god with the blood of Mushin. The man was in very good shape and this was far from the end. He warned everyone that none of them would live to see tomorrow, even if there is God among them. Then bring his heart. And you scoundrel attacked Mushin. And they only wanted his blood. But the god of war was not so simple. His power as the god of war was infinitely great, and with one super powerful blow he was able to take out the cult adherents. Using your technique, his super powerful blows tore his opponents apart. The warriors didn't even reach him. Mushin's eyes burned with a yellow flame of power. All he did was count the corpses of his enemies. The ground beneath him shook. He hit the center of the earth and it scattered into stones at his enemies. No one can match his strength. No one could even come close to him. The main target was the head of this bloody sect. The main character pushed off from the ground and flew up. He rose high above his enemies and took aim at the bloody leader. He spoke with rage and moved closer to his goal. And the head of the cult threatening him burned in anticipation of a collision. His eyes glowed with red fire. He looked like a demon who was thirsty for battle. At this moment, the husband awakens on his knees in the dungeon. Of all his memories, he chose poison. He showed where the main character experiences great physical pain. And this was shown by the main character that if he could not resist the effects of the poison, then no one in this cave could do it. Hansen Jean and this child too. Mushin must hurry and find her. The girl was already under the influence of this strong poison. She saw a rope twisted into a knot. But I saw a woman in a rope of death and she was dying on it. The girl fell into the past when her mother did an irreparable act. He heard these screams in his head. A crazy bitch. How could she leave her child and follow her husband? What a misfortune, she was such a charming beauty and wanted to play with her a little. What will I do with his child? She may refuse to look like her mother, so we can try to raise her. An unknown hand reached out to the little one's face. Tears and resentment hid deep in the soul of this girl. The poison acted on people to suffer. She hid in a corner and muttered to herself, "I will kill every single one of them."